Welcome back everybody. Today we will talk about the biggest problems with TCG Prize Cards and how Yu-Gi-Oh! And Flesh and Blood are tackling these. In the last video we were already taking a look at how Flesh and Blood was leveling up the game with their TCG Prize Cards with their gold standard. And today we are also leveling up our lemon score, which we will use to rate how Yu-Gi-Oh! And Flesh and Blood are interacting with the prize card system. So let's jump right into it. Today we will see why history will not repeat itself, and we will also compare in detail how the Yu-Gi-Oh! And the Flesh and Blood prize cards hold up together and how they taste, and why it is important not only to have the lemon score but also sometimes to add in a strawberry to the mix. So just to combine this with where we led off in the last video, if you want to see that, check it out in the description. We were talking about Flesh and Blood missed the chance of making their prize cards truly unique, and also their prize cards are unique. And today we will see why this is actually the case. We were already seeing with the TCG Gold standard that it's a win-win situation for players and collectors. And today we'll also see why Yu-Gi-Oh! Has the far more interesting and unique prize cards, and that prize cards in Flesh and Blood are much better than what Yu-Gi-Oh! Has today, but can never be what Yu-Gi-Oh! Had. So, we already saw that Flesh and Blood creates TCG prize card history with the gold standard. So if you want to check that out, the link is in the description. And now we will also, let's, of course, don't forget the lemon score. Because this is actually how we will rate today, how the prize card system actually ranks to each other in 1 to 5 lemons. So, let's jump right into it. We will start off with taking a look at the rarities, the versions, and also the reprints of the prize cards, starting off with Flesh and Blood. And that is really important because we do have some differences here in Yu-Gi-Oh! And Flesh and Blood, and also we will see why Flesh and Blood actually choose the way they have chosen and why it is very different in Yu-Gi-Oh! So, we have here the first prize card that in Flesh and Blood was given out. The extended art gold foil Fabled spring tunic. Try and say that 3 times very fast. This is the actual prize card here in the middle. And funny to say, like, the prize card is a reprint. And when you come from Yu-Gi-Oh!, you are not used to this system. And so do I. In Flesh and Blood, it is the case that before prize card comes out, it is printed in a booster box, and so it was for the first prize card. The first prize card was released the first time, so the actual card, in a booster box. The Fabled spring tunic in cold foil. So the print style is the cold foil, and it is actually black border, which matters when looking at Flesh and Blood. So it was released in the Welcome to Wraith Alpha Booster Box. So you can only pull the cold foil version of the tunic in the Alpha Booster Box. And after that, you could have the chance to win the gold foil extended art at the Calling, which is the tournament. And here you can see already a very unique art style is added to the card to make it more unique and more special, which is the extended art. So you have the full picture of the artwork on the card. And then after that, of course, it can be reprinted, and it was in non-foil and in rainbow foil, but it also was released in black border here again in, for example, Crucible of War. So that's how the normal cycle for prize cards in Flesh and Blood looks like. A card is released in a booster set, and then it is printed as gold foil as a prize card. And for some special cards, it is the extended art treatment, and the Fabled spring tunic is out of print. All were given out, which we actually saw in the last video. And the actual prize card that you can win at the Calling in this time is the Crown of Providence. And you can see here also the difference. This is the booster set released version of the card, the cold foil Crown of Providence, with the normal artwork. And then on the right you have the extended artwork, which is actually printed on the Calling Champion prize card. So I also have here the numbers for all the cards, but you can look them up your own in the descriptions. I don't want to get in much detail here in this video, but just keep in mind that 25 of these cards, of the Calling prize cards, will be given out, and that the Tunic is a, how is it called in English, a layout. It's basically double the amount of other extended art gold for legendaries, because it was printed before the gold standard, and it was also given out to the top 8 of certain callings in New Zealand. So all of the other stuff we already talked about, but let's just say, from my opinion, we can give this a lemon score of 5 out of 5. I mean, when you look at it from today, this is already really amazing, and I don't see what they really could have made much more appealing here. It's the gold foil treatment. It's the only version that you can get in gold foil, and it's also a extended art. So that's really amazing, and I think this also tastes like they put in some strawberries into this lemonade, not only lemons. And let's also add in another score, and that is, how would we think of a score tomorrow? So when time passes, how can we rate this? I think also because of the low print runs, so only 25 copies for the newer versions that will come out in the future, I think also we can expect this to be really amazing and have 5 out of 5 lemons. So let's keep going down the ladder, because now we actually oh yeah, as I see this, we will talk about the other legendaries that are available as a gold foil prize card, but keep in mind that for Flesh and Blood, actually legendary is the rarity, and that in general you can say legendaries only get reprinted as legendaries, and so vice versa for the other rarities, which is a very big difference when you look at Yu-Gi-Oh! So usually when you have these other legendaries, you will only see them as legendaries too. So one example for the other legendaries that are printed as gold foil is the Mask of Momentum, which is also the normal version. The first version that was released is the gold foil black border version from Alpha, so the Alpha booster box. And you can only get this Mask of Momentum gold foil when you compete in certain tournaments, which we were already talking about in the last video. And this card is then given out in the black envelope. Again, we already showed this in the last video from Legend Story Studios itself. And then, of course, it's also reprinted again and again in other sets like Welcome to Wraith Unlimited. So to actually show you, because I think this photo here from Kugane, which his channel I also linked down below, he actually got a gold foil Mask of Momentum. And to actually compare this to the normal version of the gold foil, I can show you here a Mask of Momentum. It's very difficult to show it on the camera, but I hope you can see this. Like, the mask itself is in foil, and the only difference that you have really to this card and the gold foil is that the border is in gold, and you can very clearly see this here in this picture, that actually this is the case for this card. So this is the only difference in this prize card, reprinted from the original version. And of course then also the print run numbers. So you only have 40 copies of this gold foil Mask of Momentum. Again, if you want to see all the numbers, check out the first video or check out the cards, the gold foil prize cards page on the fabtcg.com. But keep in mind, like, here now is a really important part when looking at Yu-Gi-Oh! Later in the video, because This prize card is one of the first prize cards that was printed and that was given out in the early days of Flesh and Blood. It is a very valuable card too, in that regards, but now it is also possible to be pulled as a prize card for an unknown time. And I think that makes this really special and so amazing that even down the line, maybe even for years, for 2 years, or maybe even 10 years, who knows, this card could be potentially pulled when you win a tournament in the Flesh and Blood. Because also when you look at it, nearly half of the population is giving out, so 19 copies of this card are in circulation, but 21 can be pulled until all of them got pulled. And that is the case also for all the other gold foils. And this is just one of the really unique ways that Flesh and Blood rewards their players, and I think makes it really special to down the line open up and win these gold foils at the tournaments. So I think at this point, the lemon score actually, like, this is really different from what we saw in the extended art, and down the line, I think this will change. So looking at it today, I would give it a 3 out of 5 lemon score, because it is really a high entry barrier to actually pull one of these. And also the difference to the normal versions is not that high. But considering the rarity of these cards, it is very amazing. And I think over time, this will age really good. So I think this tastes like a prize card for sure. It is really a prize card. But for me, there is missing the strawberry here, because like we already saw, in my opinion, the extended art treatment, the gold foil treatment for the calling winners is what makes them so special. And then, of course, the normal gold foils are a little bit below that, but also that makes them not as special as the extended art versions. I think if they would have chosen to give the cards an alternate art or an extended art, that would make it more of the taste of what we saw in the Calling Champion prize card. But now let's see here when we look at it from a tomorrow's view. So think about how this will age. We already talked about this, but I think even down the line, this score will look like this. I think we will have a 6 out of 5 lemon score. And how do I come to now add in a 6th lemon to the 5 out of 5 lemon score? Alex, what's wrong with you? I think this is really for players and collectors that look at this, because you have the chance in the future to pull one of the first prize cards in Flesh and Blood, even though it is not the first year or the second year of Flesh and Blood. How amazing is this? And I think that is something that they really, truly, uniquely thought of. And this is what makes it tomorrow taste like strawberry lemonade, because this is just so amazing. Think about that. Let that sink in for a moment. When in 2 or 3 or 5 years, you're opening up one of the first prize cards. How amazing is this? Okay. Now let's come to the lowest ladder of the prize cards, which are the commons, the rares, and the majestics in Flesh and Blood. And here we have an example, the Null Rune gloves. We can also see here from the photo the gold foiling border. And then the normal version, the first version, the cold foil version from the first edition Arcane Rising box, and then the reprints. And here is what you have to keep in mind, like when we are talking about Flesh and Blood, it's always like a border that is also very uniquely for the card, because there are different borders that you can actually have. You have the white border, so you can actually here on the white background not even see the border, which is the lowest reprint, so to say. And then you have the black border, the kind of premium border, as you can say it here, for the first editions and also the main versions of the card. So also this card comes in the black envelope, and it is rewarded to the ProQuest champion. These these numbers of the how much are printed or how much are given out is way higher, of course. For commons, it's a maximum of 100. And of this particular card are 43 in circulation. So a little bit over half of the population is pullable in future. And when we look at it this way, I would say this is also for me a very high score. So I think I would give this 5 out of 5 lemons straight away. And for some this might sound strange, but I think when you compare it also to Yu-Gi-Oh, this is really amazing because you actually can, on a local tournament, it's a high competitive tournament, yes, but it is at your local area. You can win a prize card, you have a low entry barrier, and you can actually make some money back that you put into competing in these tournaments, traveling to these tournaments, buying the cards for the decks and so on. And I think that is so amazing. I really think this deserves a 5 out of 5 just solely because of that. And also for me, this tastes like a strawberry, to be honest, because when you think of it, it's just amazing. You can go to your local ProQuest and win a prize card. How amazing is this? And also, I would say this from tomorrow's view, it's also a 6 out of 5 because of this reason that you can really pull some of the rarest and high valuable commons, rares and majestics down the line. I think this is something to really keep in mind, that this will already taste like a strawberry tomorrow too. I don't think this will age badly. I think this will age really, really well. So this is actually the situation that we have in Flesh and Blood. And when you compare it to what we already knew from the first video and from the gold foil inventory, from the gold standard, this is so amazing. This is something that they sought out so well. And I think even though I gave the so to say normal legendary gold foils a lower score in the beginning, I think this is something truly remarkable and truly deserves of putting the prize card to another level. It is really another level, but I already told you in the beginning, I think this cannot replicate what Yu-Gi-Oh did. And why am I saying this? Let's come actually to Yu-Gi-Oh. And here on top, I have this, so to say, that's their concept. Let's call it like this. Yu-Gi-Oh has the concept of the prize card being the original, which is their kind of lemon that they are giving their prize cards, the taste, so to say. They are really making it a lemon and a strawberry combination because they are saying like prize cards are the originals and then afterwards they get reprinted. And in the beginning, I think when you think of this, this is really thought as a lemon when we look at it from the score. But it turns out that it is actually a bad thing. And we will see in a few moments why. And as I entered Flesh and Blood, I was really confused. And I also will mention this multiple times in the video down the line, that I think this is truly the opportunity that Flesh and Blood missed, is making their cards truly unique from a reprint standpoint. Because prize cards in Flesh and Blood are actually reprints. And some of them, like we saw, don't even have that much of a difference in the look. They have the gold foil treatment, which is really premium and really rare. But otherwise, it's not that big of a difference in the beginning. Keep that in mind. But this turns out to be a really great lemonade taste, and it's actually combined with the strawberry taste because the reprinting is actually amazing. And we will see this why here now when we come to Yu-Gi-Oh, which we will start off with the first prize card that actually Yu-Gi-Oh introduced, which is the Cyberstein. And here right off the bat we have a picture of it. It's the ultra rare version of the card, the first version. And here you also, when we compare it to Flesh and Blood, keep in mind that ultra rare in Yu-Gi-Oh is the rarity, but also the print style of the card. So it's not that diverse like it is in Flesh and Blood, and also not that, it's a little bit less complicated. Let's say it like this, okay? Because the first time this card was given out was at the Shonen Jump Championchip, and then afterwards it was reprinted as the rare. So when we compare it to Flesh and Blood, the rarity of the card when being reprinted in Yu-Gi-Oh! Can change, and that is not the case in Flesh and Blood. And that is why, even though this card was, so to say, a really high rarity, which is harder to pull in a booster box, can actually be less hard of a strain to pull in the future. That is not the case with Flesh and Blood. With, for example, the Tunic will, at least from what we saw in Flesh and Blood, most likely will forever be a legendary. Maybe it changes, I don't know, but at least that is the state of the art in Flesh and Blood now. And even in Yu-Gi-Oh! When we see one of the recent or a newer reprint of the card is the Secret Rare reprint from, what's the set names again? Battles of Legends, Heroes, Revenge. Yes. So Secret Rare is kind of higher rarity than Ultra Rare, even though this card is not as rare as the Ultra Rare. Okay. Here it gets a little bit complicated because, of course, Ultra Rare is not as high of a rarity as Secret Rare, but of course it's rarer because it is a prize card. And we see this here. This prize card, Cyberstein, was given out at the first Shonen Jump Championships from from December 2004 till the middle of 2005. In this period of time, you could win the Cyberstein, and then also it was reprinted in the beginning. So also in December 2004, right off the bat as a rare in Dark Beginning 1. And then it came back in 2019 because it was actually banned. So you can actually see here, yes, it is not an issue, the reprint thing here with this card. And I would go even further here because when we look at the Shonen Jump Championship, I want to talk about this here in a little bit more detail than we took it with the Flesh and Blood tournaments, because this tournament series does not longer exist. But we have some historical information about it because the Shonen Jump Championship was the first English TCG tournament that had prize cards intended for use in the TCG. I didn't know that as I of course know it from the player's perspective, but I didn't really thought about this information. And when I read it in the PSA article, which I have also linked down below, I thought about this. This was really a change in the TCG history, and you have to keep in mind this because in the beginning it was really different from what was Yu-Gi-Oh! From what Yu-Gi-Oh! Was back then and what it is now. And back then it was so amazing to have a new version of a card, a new mechanic from a prize card actually, because these prize cards were usually extremely powerful and they would shake the meta. So the meta would change when these prize cards came out. And you also need to keep in mind that in the beginning only 10 to 20 copies existed at release. So this will get a problem for sure. And you also need to keep in mind, for the information, that Shonen Jump Championship Series was held between 2004 and 2009. Again, if you want to read everything, the article is linked below. So, for the population, we don't have this information like in the gold standard, like in Flesh and Blood, but we know that around 150 copies of the Shonen Jump Cyberstein prize card are in existence. So this makes it not even near the population of the extended art gold foils. I mean, we only have 25 of the extended art gold foils and 50 tunics for sure, but we can even see like this is really rare. But of course, with time and with the current market in Yu-Gi-Oh, this is one of the most sought after prize cards, and for sure it was the first one, so this makes it even more special. Okay, let's rate this, and I have here the two scores side by side because we are actually in the future for these prize cards. So I think when I look back, I would rate this a 5 out of 5 lemon score for the Cyberstein back in 2004. But I wasn't there when this card was released, so I could be wrong on this. Maybe this was only a 2 out of 5 because it was actually that rare and so hyped up in price. I'm not sure. I don't have any information about that. But when you look at it from today's standpoint, I would say also we can add 1 lemon to the score, because for collectors this is actually amazing. Like, this card can never be given out again, at least from the reprint policies that we saw in Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't think it is officially announced by the company. I'm not sure about that, but I believe it is so. And we can be pretty sure that this card will not be reprinted as it was here in this exact version, when we look at the reprint behavior that we see in Konami's products. So let's go with the second prize card in Yu-Gi-Oh! That we look at, and that is the Shonen Jump prize card Crush Card Virus. One of the most iconic and most known cards in the whole TCG, I would say, because it is an anime card that Kaiba uses in the actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. And it is also an ultra rare, so all the Shonen Jump prize cards were ultra rares. And we had a reprint, a gold rare reprint, so maybe James and the LSS team looked at this and said, oh, we need this beautiful gold rare. I'm not sure. This is, like, when you ask me, one of the ugliest versions of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. But this was the first reprint of the prize card. And then down the line, of course, also other versions came out, which we will look at in a few moments. But here you can already see a difference. The prize card, the actual Crush Card Virus Ultra Rare, was given out in 2007 for a period of 6 months. And when looking at the numbers, and that is also stated in the PSA article, there are around 63 in existence. And this is already below 50% of what we saw in the Cyberstein population, but it is also above all variants of what we saw in the legendary tier over in Flesh and Blood. But just to keep this information here. So in 2008, the meta changed really, really hard. And this is where I have confirmed information about why this was the case. And that is also because of the Dark Up Dragon deck. And you needed the Crush Card Virus in this to really compete at the highest level in Yu-Gi-Oh! Back then. So you can say that you had to play this, otherwise you were at a huge disadvantage. And this made this so powerful and so of a high value. So you needed to spend a really big buck on this. I would say this pissed off really so much people. And also people are talking about this today even. Yeah, this was the problem stakes. And I think when you look at this in Flesh and Blood, just imagine James and the team would have gone this road. Fierndal Spring Tunic would be the first original print, the prize card, and there were only 50 in existence. And then after that, the printings in the booster boxes came. I mean, there was enough reprints for sure, but when you see it like this in the beginning, then this would have been crazy. This would have been so crazy if they would have pursued with this, that the gold foil extended art would be for a year the only version that you can get. And that's here the point where I think they really looked at the history and they really made a smart decision and a really good decision. But let's come back to the prize card. I think also in Yu-Gi-Oh! We can mention this here. With the Crush Card Virus, there were also an alternate art version of the card. So I think this one here is the Shonen Jump prize card artwork, so the original from the anime. And then this is a reprint, an ultimate rare from the Duelist pack Kaiba. And this is actually an alternate art version, so this is also possible in Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, okay, let's score this. Just of the reasons why we already talked about this in the beginning, I think people were really pissed off by this, and this is why I would rate this in 2008 only a 2 out of 5 lemon score. But of course, today collectors really dig this card. They love this card. It's also not on the market anymore to be won at the tournaments. So I think this is really for collectors, a +1 lemon. And keep in mind, in Flesh and Blood, I was given the +1 for the collectors and the players. Because they can pull in the future these early days prize cards, and in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not possible. You can't pull a Crush Card Virus or get a Crush Card Virus at recent tournaments in Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore. Of course, collectors say like, oh, that's amazing. That's good that this card cannot be gotten at recent tournaments. But I don't think so. I think that really Flesh and Blood does it in a smart way and an interesting way to reward players and collectors in the future for their early prize cards. It's so interesting to see the difference. And I think this is really what also is when we look at the more recent YCS prize card in a few moments, a really great thing to have, and actually maybe one of the reasons why the company actually in Flesh and Blood made the decision. So this tastes like a strawberry. I have it here, picture of the strawberry lemonade. For sure, today it tastes like a strawberry. So let's move on in time. 2009, the last Shonen Jump Championship went over, and then afterwards the Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship series was introduced. And here we have a prize card, the Minerva, the Exalted Light Swan, from 2015 to 2016 era. And we already can see a difference from what Yu-Gi-Oh! Did before, and I think that is also due to the problems that the player base were having with the only version of the card being the ultra rare. They want to give also other people in the tournaments the opportunity to win this card. So not only the first place winner of the tournament can win a prize card, but also the second to third place, I believe it is, can win a prize card now, but in a different rarity. It is in Yu-Gi-Oh! So the ultra rare, the higher rare version can only be won by the winner of the main event, and then the super rare version without the golden letter can be won by the second and third place at the YCS. So this card was given out in a 1 year era between 2015 to 2016, and then the first reprint came in 2019, also with the same set as the Cyberstein came out. So I believe it is right. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Actually, Bay LLR is the Hero's Revenge, and yeah, I'm not quite sure actually at this moment. Sorry for that. This is not the right set. I think for BLLR is Light's Revenge is, I think, the name. Yeah, write it in the comments if you know it exactly. But the main thing here I want to talk about is the period of time where this card didn't see a reprint, and it was actually 3 years. And this is, at least it was a problem for competitive players, but it wasn't as bad as it was with the Crush Card Virus, because the Minerva wasn't really needed for the best deck. There was a really heavy meta deck that played Minerva, but you weren't bound to buy this card. But if you wanted to play Light Swan at a competitive level, you pretty much needed this card. So not the same situation, but a similar situation for competitive players who needed to spend a really big buck on this card back then. I also have an article linked down below from TCG Player, where they examine all of the YCS prize cards, if you want to have a look at that. Because we are now rating, of course, Minerva with the lemon score, and I think in 2015 this was a little bit better than what we saw in Crush Card Virus situation, but not that optimal. I think from what I knew, I was also actively in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community at that time, and I knew some people who were winning this card and some people who didn't have access to this card, and some people were so pissed off by this. They were so pissed off because Light Swan was one of the fan favorite decks. I'm not sure if it is anymore today, but back then at least. And that's why I think you can score this lower than 5 out of 5, but higher than the crush card, actually with 3 out of 5. So today, of course, also for collectors, it is 6 out of 5 in my opinion. It upgraded the score, so to say, because collectors can actually really enjoy today a unique piece that will never be given out. But also players have access to this card through the reprint in the Battles of Legend booster box. And it even has a higher rarity. Wow. So this tastes today for sure like a strawberry lemonade. Can't tell me either. So yeah, let's come to the current situation in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta and in the YCS prize card sphere, which is actually the Anothoverse Dragon. This is the current prize card that you could win in Yu-Gi-Oh! At the YCS tournament. And there are mixed feelings about this from what I have heard. I'm not longer actively in the competitive community, so I can't really tell from my own experiences. But when you reach out online, you already see like some posts on Reddit, for example, where people say it's unfair, they release a useful card, make them expensive, so on, so on. And also some of the players mentioned their opinions about this openly in the community. For example, Joschua Schmidt, a former YCS champion from Germany, which is saying in his video, a vanilla prize card. His video is linked down below if you want to see the full version, but I picked some of the mentions that he made in his video here for this purpose. And he says it literally got nothing for it competitively. So even though maybe some players are actively saying online it's unfair actually that Konami puts out this prize card, from a competitive standpoint, Joschua said it's not needed for competitive play. And he even says it's a bad card. I mean, it's a vanilla, and the stats, at least from what I heard, don't have anything to say in the matter at the moment. And as a meta player, you don't get forced into buying this card. This is what makes it so amazing. This is what makes it so amazing for the players. And it is still expensive and rare, of course, because it is a prize card and it's really hard to get, really low number. But at least he says like the card looks cool, the flavor text is cool, so it got something for it. So he's glad that we are not facing the same situation like we already talked about with the Crush Card Virus and the Dark Hunt Dragon deck. So let's rate this, and I would say we can rate this a 5 out of 3. For obvious reasons, this is not a 5 out of 5. I think this tastes like prize card, of course. It is a really delicious lemonade when you win this card, but comparing it to the past, and also comparing it for a current situation in Flesh and Blood, I think Flesh and Blood really has so much more things going on for it when we look at the prize cards. And I also think when we think about how we would score this in the future, I think this will go up in score, of course, because it will be out of print. It can't be accessed anymore. It's a highly purchased prize card, but I don't think that collectors will remember this card as much like, for example, the Crush Card Virus. I can't really see the step up to an era of the Shonen Jump prize cards or even past prize cards that we were seeing in the YCS tournament. So if you disagree on this, of course, let me know in the comments. Let me know your opinions or your thoughts on this. And this is actually all the prize cards that are the main reason I'm talking about this in the video. And I have some more things actually to talk about. And that is over here. Oops. This is over here because prize cards are not only the prize cards from the main tournaments that you can win, but like we saw in the first video, we also have a World Championship. So the highest pinnacle tournament that you can access in Flesh and Blood, but also in Yu-Gi-Oh! And that is here the creme de la creme that I want to talk about. and why I also think the uniqueness of the cards is really on the Yu-Gi-Oh side here rather than the Flesh and Blood side. So I had really so much positive things and so unique things to say until now, but let's look at the World Championship prize cards. And we need to look at the World Championship in Flesh and Blood and compare it to the Pro Tour, because actually the prize card that is given out to the World Champion in Flesh and Blood is also given out to the Pro Tour Champion. Not the exact same card if you don't win with the same hero, but it is possible. Let's say it like this, because here we have the 3 prize cards that were given out until now in this point of time for the Pro Tour and the World Championship, which was the first Pro Tour champion, the Pablo Pintor, which he was winning with Chainbound by Shadow. And you can actually see the prize card is the hero card in cold foil, and then with the unique promo stamp and the Pro Tour champion gold foil letter. That's a really amazing prize card, right? I mean, you actually embed the champion, so the Pro Tour champion, as the hero you were playing. And that is really amazing. And also this happened at the second Pro Tour where Matthew Folks was winning with Briar, Warden of Thorns. Both of these cards I was seeing in person. This is from one of my videos, which I was also linking below if you want to check that out. And I know for sure this card was sold, I think, like not a minute after winning, but really closely to that. It was pretty much sold directly. And for around 25,000, I think. I'm not really sure about that number, but that's a one-of-one card, and this card can never be given out again. Never, because this champion is living legend. And yeah, this card could be given out to the Pro Tour champion and the World Champion, but it is living legend now, because in Flesh and Blood, you not only have a ban list, but also the heroes rotate out when they crafted enough points on the living legend ladder. So even though there can be multiple copies of the champions cards, it is not really that easy to get that, and most of the time there will be a one-of-one. And that is also why here we have the World Champion prize card, Islander Stormbind, which was the hero that Michael Hamilton won the World Championship with. And you can see here it also has the Pro Tour Champion stamp. So the World Champion gets a prize card where it says Pro Tour Champion. Of course it is a one-of-one until now, but this makes it, I think, a little bit less appealing when comparing it to other World Championship prize cards. And we will also talk about why this maybe doesn't matter that much, but when comparing the looks and the feel and the taste of it, it definitely has less for it going as a prize card than what we have in a Yu-Gi-Oh! So 3 one-of-ones until now for the World or Pro Tour Champion prize cards. And let's just look at the normal version here, because the Pro Tour Champion and the World Champion prize cards are also a recreation of the original hero art. Here, for example, Chain, and they are a reprint. So I think that is also something to compare to Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the actual prize card is, so to say, a reprint. And I think maybe they could have gone a little bit further here to make it more special. I'm not saying it's not special or it is bad or something like that. I just think when we look at the lemon score here, this is a 4 out of 5. I think this is a 4 out of 5 today, because sometimes it feels like a little bit normal because it has the same artwork, I think. And also when we compare it to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Situation in a few seconds. So here, I think it actually, this could have been a lemon or strawberry, but for the World Champion, I think it tastes a little bit different. So for the Pro Tour Champion, of course, because it says Pro Tour Champion, this is for sure a strawberry feeling. Strawberry taste when you are the Pro Tour Champion and get the Pro Tour prize card. But when you are the World Champion, I think this tastes like a normal lemonade, because it actually says Pro Tour Champion. I'm not sure if Michael actually sold his Icelander. Maybe I'm asking him at the next Pro Tour where we will film videos together with his team, the Wolf Pack. So I will ask him for sure there. But when we look at the score, the Lemon score, which I think will grow really well for these Pro Tour Champion prize cards, this will for sure be for collectors 6 out of 5, even a minute after release of these cards, I think, which also shows why a chain was sold so quickly, because these are so unique, and also in the future these are one-of-ones, and that will never change. So that's really amazing. But let's just here get where I had the strawberry feeling from, and that was actually when I was looking at Dragon Ball Super. And here the prize card is also a reprint, but I think this is actually a little bit more converted into a lemon here, because the prize card has a different artwork than the normal version. And I think here maybe this could have done in Flesh and Blood 2. Maybe they change it in the future, I'm not sure. Maybe they never change it. But here you have I think the normal version. I'm not really familiar with Dragon Ball Super, but from what I found online, this is one of the normal versions, I think, of the cards. And this is the champion card. So you have this card given out to multiple champions, and you can see here is a stamp for the 3rd place. And then I think it says Nationals Champion, I think. Where this is actually a much more upgraded version of the alternate art with the gold. But this, I think, is really the fusion what Dragon Ball did here of the lemon and the strawberry taste to actually make this card, even though it is a reprint, taste really like a strawberry lemonade on the prize card scale. So let me know if you disagree with me, because I think really when you compare it like this, the lemon score in comparison goes down when you win this as the world champion, the Pro Tour Champion prize card. It's yeah. Okay, let's come to Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think here really this is what makes really the lemon stand out in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because prize cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are the original. And for the World Championship, this is truly amazing, because you have a new card, and I think prize cards, the World Championship prize cards got some reprints until today, some of them, but not every prize cards, and this is just truly amazing. We will look at it here. This is one of my favorite cards ever. This is also one of the cards that I've owned, but not in the ultra rare version, in the super rare version, and it looks so damn amazing in person. And you really rarely get to see this artwork even in the original printing, in the ultra rare or the super rare. This is just... even when I'm speaking about this, I really get goosebumps, because this is so amazing. Let me dive into why this is actually so amazing, besides that it is an original. So, when you look at the World Championship for Yu-Gi-Oh!, it is actually the case that this card was the 2011 champion prize card, and it was given out 2 times. So not like in the Pro Tour Champion prize card for Flesh and Blood, it's not a 1-of-1, but it was given out to the 1st place World Champion of 2011 and also the Dragon Duel Champion of that year. So 2 copies of these cards exist that were given out by Konami. And then also the 2nd to 4th place for the World Championship gets also a unique card, which in this year was Queen Naraya, the Silver Crown. And this got never reprint. So only a couple of copies are in existence, and they were never given out again. And they also make it so that it's not bad for the players, because these cards can actually not be used in a duel. That's actually what is printed on the card. And they also have always the same effect, so to say. So when this card reduces the life points to 0, you win the whole match, and that is also difference like you have it in Flesh and Blood. You only need to win 1 game. In Yu-Gi-Oh! You actually need 2 out of 3 games. That is what these cards do when they attack. They win you the whole match. So what actually makes these so unique is that the artworks are bound to the location or to a certain event characteristic that is partnered with the current World Championship. And in this case, in 2011, the World Championship in Yu-Gi-Oh was held in Amsterdam. And that's why they chose to let the artist paint this artwork in the original Netherlands. So let's just open this up here. So the coat of arms, the weapon, the emblem of the Netherlands, the royal arms of the Netherlands, is actually the centerpiece for the artwork that was chosen to be given to King Landia the Goldfang. And also other characteristics were given to the second place champions prize, the second place prize card, like the tulips, for example, here. So let's continue with the reprint, because I already said the second place card was never reprinted, but the first place card was actually reprinted. This was one of the cards that I have bought back then. I sadly don't have it anymore, but this is like the reprint, and it was given out the year after the World Championship. This is usually how they go with these. So the first place gets a reprint in super rare, and the next year at the Japanese Nationals attendance. So it is limited about 150 copies, which remember the print runs from Flesh and Blood is higher than it is in Flesh and Blood, but really, really rare. And even though considering the age, of course. So what actually makes these original cards so unique? It's that they always chose to polish the artworks with golden elements, like for example here from other world's prize cards. You always see like golden elements in the artwork, and you always have, like for example here, Grandopolis, the Eternal Golden City. So the World Championship from 2013 was in Las Vegas, and they chose to give the turtle the city. And that's just amazing and really truly unique in my opinion. So you always have an individual artwork for every year. You also have an individual artwork for the location, and keep in mind the second place gets their own unique cards. So they are meant as a trophy. Yeah, we already talked about this. But now let's actually come to a problem that we have here, and which was actually addressed in Flesh and Blood. Guys, this really made me a little bit shaky as I heard of this, but I'm not sure for which cards exactly besides the King Landia. Because of that, I found confirmation online that even though only 2 copies should have existed of the ultra rare, so the first place card won in 2011, I need to keep the score down because of this. Because actually multiple copies got leaked. So this card out of the factory got removed, stolen, and was given out to the public, was sold. This is a disaster, I think. And this is what Flesh and Blood and LSS address with their gold standard and their reprint policy, and with everything showing the destruction of all the extra copies they produce of these prize cards. And I think that they address this problem is really amazing for everyone involved in playing and collecting, because this actually downgrades, in my opinion, the score, and not only the score, the taste and everything surrounding these World Championship prize cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! I think from what I've heard, the collectors are aware of this for sure, and there's a difference somehow in these prize cards. But for me, when looking at it, it reduces the score of the taste, even though this tastes like a strawberry lemonade because of the uniqueness compared to the World Championship prize card in Flesh and Blood. We are nearly at an hour. I nearly talked about everything that I wanted to talk about so far, but I wanted to come to the selling points, to resume everything and keep it bounded of the main points that we talked about for Flesh and Blood and Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think you can really say both TCGs have it down for their prize cards to be only earned by the best and highest ranked competitors in the Flesh and Blood or in Yu-Gi-Oh! And they also have these unique printing styles. The only difference here is that in Yu-Gi-Oh! It is not really backed by the company with a clear statement like the gold standard. I think Konami is really, truly clear about their statements, but Flesh and Blood and LSS are going a mile more here with their reprint policy and with the gold standard. Then also both TCGs have the scarcity, so the low print run, but again, this is in Yu-Gi-Oh! Not really baked like it is in Flesh and Blood, and even violated by distributors like we saw with the World Championship prize card. So Flesh and Blood has it going for it that it is baked by the print run and the statement, and also the company is saying like this should be of high value because it is actually really, really rare. Yu-Gi-Oh! Though has it going for it that they have these unique play styles and these new cards for the meta through their past prize cards. But that got a problem over time, so they kind of changed it, I think, with the newest YCS prize card, because this pissed off casual players for sure, but also it shaked the meta so much that competitive players had to put in so much money. Let's come to the last points here. I think what we saw with the black envelope and the randomness in the Flesh and Blood prize card is a point for Flesh and Blood. It is really amazing also with the quality insurance, and it just gets better more and more over time. But Yu-Gi-Oh! For sure has it going with the special treatment and the special feeling with the artworks, with the story behind these event exclusive artworks. And also I think really Yu-Gi-Oh! Has done something which I talked in the beginning. Flesh and Blood missed out on this, I think, but they have their own history, they have their own uniqueness. But on this historic points, they can't really recreate this. This is a feeling, I think, what makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Prize cards so special, and also why Yu-Gi-Oh! Needed to change this, because they can't repeat these history points again. Yeah, so playable cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Back then was a problem, but in Yu-Gi-Oh! In Flesh and Blood, they can also be playable, and it is not a problem. Man, this really gets to the end here. So Flesh and Blood has history, and with the Tunic here, it will never be reprinted again. That is for sure a 5 out of 5 lemon score for Flesh and Blood, I think. And in Yu-Gi-Oh! They have the history, but also here the reprint doesn't affect the original. And so even though the Crush Card virus in the newer days got reprinted in nearly the exact version, you can say, so in ultra rare and also in the same artwork as the original prize card, Konami changed the print style a little bit. This is not the same cardstock anymore, so the reprint doesn't really affect it. And I think that is what gives the older Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards an edge here when you compare it historically, because these prize cards can be reprinted again and again, and their price and their uniqueness will never be scratched. So I think also this deserves a really high lemon score, and I would think this reprint doesn't affect the original, gives it a +1 here. So my final thoughts about this is, I think looking at both of the TCGs, we can clearly see how Yu-Gi-Oh! Invented a new way for the prize cards and how they needed to adjust this over time and in recent days, and also how Yu-Gi-Oh! Affected the creation of the Flesh and Blood prize cards, and maybe why James and the team decided the way they wanted to go. And also, even though maybe the legendary more normal gold foils are not that differently to the original print than it is in Yu-Gi-Oh!, where actually the prize cards are then a little bit more unique in the beginning. They have so much things for it, and also keep in mind that also in Flesh and Blood we have cards and promos that are really new and really exclusive, also event exclusive, that you can't get otherwise. And I think that is a really smart decision that they made here, that for example the Yugioh or Taipanis, they are making this the special version, a new version of the card that is accessible in the beginning but can grow over time. And I'm really interested in whether we see a difference in the future for the World Championship in Flesh and Blood, maybe like we see it in Dragon Ball Super with the characters. I'm not sure about this, but let's see. So in the end, I think it is exactly what we said in the beginning. How can a player pay for the expenses of competing? This is a really big part in the prize card sector, and selling their prize cards is a big deal, yes. Also, maybe they could get sponsored, but in Flesh and Blood, they can also win cash prizes. Like you see here, the world champion actually won $100,000, and you don't get that in Yu-Gi-Oh! Keep that in mind. But coming back to the core message here, games and winning tournaments are not about the money. Keep that in mind, even when we talk about this long for over an hour about this topic. But it is important that prizes have the value they have and that players can actually treasure their win. Let me get a sip of water here, and I come to the end where, if you stay that long, you maybe want to subscribe to the channel and see future videos. And for sure the videos that are coming from the Pro Tour Baltimore and the Calling Antwerp, which I will be going to in the next month. I'm really excited about that. I will keep on producing videos for these kind of events and topics. And also, if you want to support me and creating these videos, check out my Patreon down in the description. At this moment, I have 0 Patreons, so maybe you are the first one. And also, if you want to support me in a single donation, then also check out the PayPal link down below, because then I have it a little bit easier to actually go to all these tournaments and make these videos for you. So if you stayed that long, thank you so much for your attention and all your time. Keep on commenting down below. Tell me your opinion and your experience in these sectors of Yu-Gi-Oh!, Flesh and Blood, and the prize cards. So see you next time.